Grazie Antonio, grazie a tutti, Appi e tutti gente. Questa ragione siamo qua. I think I speak in English because my Italian is really bad. My French is worse. My Arabic is really bad. So I'm very thrilled. I'm so honored in a way to be here. I met a lot of the Congress of with Appi and everybody in Turkey, in Antalya. How long ago was that, Brahma? Just a month ago. Seems like a year now, you know. And it was a fantastic conference in Antalya, and so they invited me today. It's been a crazy week. I'm sure a lot of people are very exhausted. So I will try to keep you awake for 45 minutes. Okay? Let's talk design. What is design? And I think about this every day of my life. And since I was a child, design is every aspect of living, of daily life. Every day we engage design. And what is design? Design is what we do to the built environment. So we have the world is full of its nature, and we came along at some point, historically, 100,000 years ago, or whatever it was, more, since Homo sapiens, and we started to build and use our intellect, use our mind to start shaping a better world. And you could argue very simply, design is about making a better world. Nothing in this world really needs to exist physically unless it shapes a human experience. In other words, design should be human-centric. It should be focused on us, not an isolated, beautiful image that we see from a distance or we see in a museum. Design is about social behavior. It's about every aspect of our lives. And with that said, if you use the word design, we have this notion of, and there's an argument for 70 years, good design, bad design. No. Design is good. Simply put, because if I'm designing, the intent here is to make a betterment for humanity. And that could be on a micro level. It could be something as simple as a ring on your finger or the phone in your hand, the chair you sit on, the car you drive, the airplane you take, the hospital you go to. This is all design. And all these objects, we forget about it because, and there was a very fantastic British sort of sociologist, design critic named Peter Dormer, who used to talk about above the line design and below the line design. So what's above the line design? I come into the airplane and I enter, and I always hit my head on the door. So I enter a little bit, right? Which I always thought, if they made the door 12 centimeter higher, would it really have an impact on the plane or not? I don't know, right? But here's the door. It's like when you go to a medieval village and the doors are this small. Okay, we become much taller. The whole world is taller. If you notice when you walk around, and this is my observation like a child, I look at the world like a child. I see everything. And you know what I find? Everything inspires me. Totally inspires me. Like, look at her beautiful hair and glasses, this woman. I find that so inspiring. You know, it's like it makes me feel alive. So I walk into the plane and I see the cockpit quickly because the door is open. And I go down the corridor and I go to put my bag up, right? And I think that archetype has existed for 65 years with no change. Sure, the technology of chairs changed a little bit, right? Sure, the aesthetics, a little bit of the form language, the material change, because we started to use lighter and lighter materials. We need to use light materials. Did you ever think when you go on a train and you go to put your luggage, there's no door, right? But there could be something that would support the luggage, but not a physical door. So right away, you could probably reduce in the plane itself. My guess is 1,200 kilo, easy. This is design. Why reduce 1,200 kilo? because then the plane can use less fuel. Because the lighter the plane, the less fuel. It's very simple. So the new Airbus, for example, 40% polymer. So of course it's very efficient, 22% less fuel. And this is interesting, I'm bringing this up now because we're in a fuel crisis globally. These are the things, this to me is design. In other words, design is not just about making form, right, or function. It's about thinking about social human behaviors. I always say design is a creative act. In other words, if you're not creative, you really shouldn't be in the profession, period, right? But it's a social act because I'm designing for you, not for me. But it's an economic act because when a company comes in and says, can you design me a line of outdoor furniture? Their intention is, they're not patrons. I'm not an artist. Their intention is to make outdoor furniture that they will sell. And why? Because they have 100 employees and they need to feed those families. So it's an economic act. Even more so, I would say it's a political act. And design, this is where it's very interesting. It can be very powerfully political too. So design is broad. So I come on the plane, that cockpit is below the line design. Why? If I design the cockpit of the plane, it's not about me. I can't be expressive. I can't do whatever I like. It's the opposite. It's all about efficiency, safety, technology, right? Oh, it's about those pilots. If I design a nice ceramic vase for Bitassi ceramic here, I could do whatever I like, right? Totally selfish. I could almost be like an artist. I always say, the artist is the most selfish profession in the world. If you're an artist, you're lucky. You don't have to listen to anybody, right? But design, got a lot of people to listen to. A lot of criteria. So the cockpit is below the line. Why is it below the line? Because I'm telling you, 99% of the people would never even think that's designed. But it is designed. His camera there that he's filming with, that is designed. In fact, those archetypes of those things, and by the way, I always criticize this. Look at this thing. This thing's ancient. This is a 70-year-old archetype, right? What's going on? So again, you're an architect, I think. You have that look. You probably look at this and think, this thing could be elegant, beautiful, I'm sure there's a few in the world, sure. But I never get to use one. I don't know why. But this thing could be miniaturized because the technology's gotten smaller, so many things. So I can have a little clip right now of that. Yeah. So this is the evolution of product development, but also all these things are designed and we tend to not see the below the line, we see above the line. So we know what above the line is? The number one object in the world that everybody sees strictly as design, 100%. And everybody buys strictly on aesthetics. You know what object that is? What object do you think it is? Huh? You will know. What object do you think that is in the world? To a papa. Exactly. Right? The car. Do you know decision-making on buying a car is 100% visual? It's being documented. Isn't that incredible? Yet, the car has issues of safety, of fuel economy, be it electric, not electric, spatial, legroom. Oh, there's a lot of factors, but we don't even see it that way. We squeeze ourselves into something like a Ferrari. Okay? I never liked these cars. Sorry, Ferrari, wherever you. Never. Because they had the time. They were at a time when that icon was important. Today, to me personally, it's a bit embarrassing. But regardless of that, I can barely get in the car. So the question, you have to ask yourself these questions. But we consume these things. We consume discomfort. We put up with a lot in this world that's uncomfortable. And if I move to interior, I can go on and on about interiors, about the plan of a space. How does one plan the space? How does one shape space or shape the objects around them to provide that better experience? So this scene can look beautiful in a photograph or an image. The question is, am I designing it for real human interaction and experience? We developed a whole new profession called experiential design. But design was always about experience, right? I remember in 1984, I worked here in Milano and I designed a coffee machine for La Cimboli. Okay? And I had to totally understand how one uses these objects. We go into it trying to understand behavior. You know, how does one, you designing a toothbrush, how does one brush their teeth? You take videos, 50 videos of people brushing their teeth to learn how you could actually improve that product. That's design. But here's the trick, or the difficult part. These objects, you can prove quite quickly how one will use them, interact with them, etc. And by the way, not use and interact, there's all other levels of design. Simple level, like for example, when you design something, you have to think about its longevity, the materials you're using. You have to think about how does somebody clean this product? Because a lot of design never goes in that direction. And we find out later on, you know, a very good example is in the kitchen or in the bathroom, there's a wall, here's a counter, and there's a seam. That seam at this point shouldn't exist because that seam has, in English, using caulking. You know what that is? That put a silicone edge. And that thing starts to get a little mold. And that thing is disgusting. So then you have, if you put the faucet close to it, you can't clean behind it. Look at toilets and all these objects there arise. The minute a designer becomes proactive at thinking about the use of a thing, they can be inspired to do something completely new. And this is the jumping point I always think about in designers. You need, as a designer, to create your own criteria. There's a company from Latvia at the fair that I designed for them, a bathtub and a sink, these objects. When I met them 2 or 3 years ago in a trade show in Poland. I walked in and I said, oh, nice, small company, doing some nice things, but nice things aesthetically, like a perfect square sink, right? Or a company doing a perfect sharp-edged faucet. Oh, in the photo, it's beautiful. And we say, we can't help, you know, if we were aesthetically driven, you go, oh, how nice, platonic. We love platonic sacred geometry, right? We love a cone and a sphere. Sphere is the sun. Sphere is the planet, right? But the straight line, for example, doesn't exist in nature. Well, we make the straight line. So you make an object like that. I go into the bathroom, I'm naked. And I had this sharp corner. No, seriously. And then I go to brush my teeth or shave. And I have incredibly sharp stainless steel or brass corner on a faucet. Or I turn a knob because my hands are wet, it doesn't turn. Right? Or I don't know which one to turn. We're in an Airbnb now, and every morning, 5 days in a row, I'm confused. I put one on, I'm trying to get the hot water. And then the hot water's boiling. I don't know if that one. I go to a hotel, I go to turn the lights. And the lights are the most confusing thing in 90% of hotels. It's crazy. Yet, and this is important about design, is why? Because all these things we do, we're not going deeper. Now, it's hard to go deep. You know, if I have 20 projects going on at the same time and I'm working in 40 countries, it takes a lot of effort to go deep. Right? But at the same time, there's no excuse for architecture firms or design firms because you just get someone in that firm. You say, you know what you're responsible for? You're responsible for figuring out the lighting, the switches. If you have a team, you do that and get it right. So these things, which sound like very banal things, this is what's interesting about life, are having a massive negative impact on our daily well-being. Jean Baudrillard, a French philosopher, was my all-time favorite. And he passed away about 15 years ago. He was in UCLA. I attended a lecture of his, and he talked about all these things we have in our lives and how many things we have. If you count the number of objects in the average home, it's over 3,000 objects. So you have all these things. The question is, A, do they have any relationship or meaning to you? Really? B, do they provide a good function to your daily life? C, and this is what his argument was, are they just obstacles in your daily life? So is an object in your life something that's bringing you some connection, some meaning, some higher experience? Or is it just there causing you a detriment to your daily life? And the world is full of this. Full. If tomorrow you said, okay, every object is in this world should provide us with a good experience, how many objects could we remove from the world? Millions. Millions. But what happens with the profession, and I will get to interior design specifically about this, when we go into the profession, instead of rethinking everything, or looking at the zeitgeist and the milieu of the time we live in, trying to understand the time we live in, no, we go to the archetype. We go to the plan. Let's say we're making a hotel, and we have a plan. You say, okay, here's the window. Okay, do I put the bed this way? Or do I put it this way? Or do I put the bed back to the window? Well, or, oh, now I have the bed. What am I looking at? TV? Wall. Should I put a coffee table here on the side and another one there, side table? Do I put a lamp? Oh, I hang a lamp. Oh, in that corner, I have an empty corner. I should shove a floor lamp there. Oh, I have another empty corner. I'll put a chair. Now, do we use a space like that? Does a designer lie in the bed of a room and design outward rather than inward? So if you lie in the bed, and I remember this very well, 20 years ago in London, I did a hotel in Brighton. And I lied in the bed and I thought, room is small. And at that time, and this is really social media, all this, I said, what do I do when I'm in the hotel room? And I found I basically did 6 things. One is, because the room is small, I watch television. Number 2, I sleep, right? Number 3, I read the newspaper or magazine. Today, or I'm looking at my phone or the iPad, right? So these are the kind of activities. Oh, of course, 5, I think, making love. 6, whatever. You have these things, right? So if you sit there, you lie there, I thought, the solution to this is, the room is full. I make a little table like that. And that table is at the end of the bed. And it can slide up and down the bed. When I slide it to me, I can have dinner in bed. I can put the magazine in the bed, coffee, a drink. So I have the table. So I don't use the space here because the room is small. Okay. It's a very, very simple, pragmatic solution to address human social behavior. And this is where we don't really, and I have done these mistakes in my life too. I look at the object just as a beautiful form, not really going deeper to think about the use. Now, when you make a product, you can do 10 prototypes until you get it perfect, right? So let's say you take a chair like this. Okay, injection molded chair, it's a mix of polypropylene, something else. And you can keep making models and models, get the ergonomics right, get the weight right, get the amount of plastic, get the price point, get the tooling right, get the 5 stacking in a box so you can ship them by UPS. The things I'm talking about, I'm telling you, designers don't talk about these things, but these are the criteria that will make this chair successful or not, right? Now, with that said, that chair is comfortable. Right? This is the approaches. But when you do an interior or a piece of architecture, you can't really test these things. This is every piece of architecture in the world is like a prototype, right? And it's sort of, in a way, you argue, high risk. Because one day, when that thing is sort of built, you're going to go in it and you're going to understand whether it works or it doesn't work. And what are the factors of making it work and not work? Well, there's not formula necessarily, but I think in this time, this day and age in which we live in, function should be a given. Just simply a given. You should be good at thinking functionally, right? If you design a park right now, big park, and I watched this 5 days ago in Puebla, Mexico. I went to a university there to speak. Most beautiful buildings, everything. Nice school, shockingly nice school, right? Students are all lying on the grass, beautiful weather. I went, wow. When I was in university, I was in a freezing cold city. Never had nice buildings around me. I felt they are lucky, right? And the park, there was a big piece of grass like this, and there was a sidewalk there, and a sidewalk sort of there and there. And every student was cutting across the grass. So you came out the door, and instead of going there and there, they go this one. Okay? There's a landscape architect in London 20 years ago. I remember this very well. He took a plan over a year period, kept photographing the students walking in the piazza, and then they made the sidewalks based on the patterns that the students made. But me, if I'm a formalist, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it in plan. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. When we design space, space is 3D, right? We are 3D. We're not static. We're dynamic. We're in motion. We're in movement. As when we're alive. So do we design the space to work with us and our body? So if space is 3D, we need to design in 3D. Now, when I learned to design, I learned analog. So I first learned with repeatometric pens and a big triangle and square, right? And every time I design, for example, an industrial design or product, I have to draw 10 times scale of the drawing, right? When you did architecture, how did we see the world of architecture? Front elevation, side elevation, plan, top view, bottom view, right? Section. We had to do sections to try to understand the three-dimensionality, but we are drawing in 2D. So in turn, we created a 2D world. You could argue 98.9% of our built environment is two-dimensional. And in fact, architecture became a kit of parts. And what I mean by that is, architecture is like a whole bunch of industrial design products put together. Why did 2D, we go 2D? Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, that's the way we saw the world. Remember, during the Gothic period, we didn't even really see perspective. Right? If I was in the Gothic period now and I paint you 6, I would paint your head the same size as her head. Can you imagine? It's amazing. Think about this. It's amazing up till the 13th century, someone could not depict perspective. I find it shocking. I can't imagine walking around not seeing perspective. Your head gets smaller, your head gets smaller, right? That's perspective. One point you started, it took 40 years, 50 years to get to 2 point. It took another 100 years to get the 3-point perspective. That's pretty incredible. So if you're designing in 2D building, we end up with 2D. So the whole world's a grid. And the world is a grid. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Not only the process and the way we design, but also the technology. In the Industrial Revolution, what did we do? We took a belt saw, a rotational saw, one of the first tools made in the Industrial Revolution, and we take the tree and we like that, right? That's our floor. Look today what you're standing on. I think this is fake wood too, right? Even worse. So, wide plank, barn wood. What the hell? That's 300-400 years ago of a wood floor. Nothing to do with the time we live in now. Nothing. Your high performance clothes, technology, polyesters, stretch, right? This material probably outlasts wood. But they made it look like wood. So what we need to do is let go of this notion of style and think design. I was on the new ITA plane, a brand new one, flying a couple of days ago directly from Toronto to Rome. It's nice to get on a new ITA because previous was atrocious. I was shocked. And get on the and they put a thick gray sort of wool fabric around the monitors. Weird. Didn't make sense to me at all. Of course, the plane is 3 months old and there's a stain, big stain. And there's peeling from the wool already. Right? Is this design? Oh, the style. And this is the biggest culprit, I think, of the time we live in now. When I was a teenager, our house in Toronto had a bathroom, entirely high gloss yellow fiberglass. With the sink, the toilet, and the bathroom. Everything, instead of that sharp sink I talked about, or the faucet, it was the opposite. It was super soft and round. 11% of heart attacks exist in showers. And many die because they fall. Elderly, many die in the bathroom falling in the bathroom. Break their hip, and that's the downfall. Yet, what do? Go to the fair and look. You know? What do? We are designing these things from a formalistic point of view only. That's industrial design. Now, I'm not saying everybody. There's some really smart thinkers out there, and there's some good work out there, no question about it. There's some really beautiful things. But the majority, when we go to space, now, there's so many factors to play in space. In order to design space three-dimensionally, we need to use 3D tools. So in 1988, I started using 3D software. And I realized by the time 2005 or so, it became so sophisticated, I thought, I don't need to ever look at an interior in 2D anymore. I don't need to look at a plan and an elevation. The majority of our architecture around the world, by the way, the facade, you can tell it's designed 2D. And the facade has nothing to do with the inside, because they've been separated and looked at as different parts of the building for human experience. They're not even thinking about human experience. There's a beautiful building I saw in Mexico City. You all probably know it. I don't remember the name of it. Museum. It's like a parabolic shape. And it's all done with these sort of geodesic aluminum or stainless tiles. Beautiful, beautiful museum. I go inside the museum, and guess what? It's all Cartesian boxes. I never get to see the facade. And I thought I would go in and feel the volume, like Frank Lloyd Wright did with the Guggenheim. When you go in, it was the building. Interior and exterior were one, in harmony, working together. Anyway, bottom line is, if you design in 2D, you create, this is three-dimensional now, made of 2D components, right? And the 2D components prevail because they're economic and cheap, right? So every window is flat, every mullion, every baseboard, everything is extruded, right? These parts. But at least if you design in 3D, you can start to shape 4D. So 2D gave us 3D, 3D gives us 4D. But what is 4D? The fourth dimension, the dimension that I'm obsessed with, which is time. In time, it's human experience. So if you want to design something for a good human experience, you have to start in 3D, not in 2D. And this is something that I've sort of over time learned about interior space and interiors in general. Many, many, many interiors are not thinking about the real human experience. We are repeating over and over and over archetypes. And it's important to break the rules for many reasons. Number one is that the problem with the world right now is called social media. And I love social media, but here's the problem. Social media has created singular trends, right? So I had looking for a junior interior designer, 800 resumes in 2 days I got on LinkedIn. And believe me, they were almost all identical renderings. Identical. This is the age we're living right now. I call it the beige epoch. And the beige epoch is, you can look at 50 showrooms and they almost all look the same, right? So that world of differentiation, which is a beautiful thing. And why is differentiation a beautiful thing? And choice? Because we're all different. So in fact, every city and every place and every town and every hotel and every hospital and every building and every restaurant and every cafe should be different. And you see, where are the creative people doing these differences? There are great talents out there. But why? Is it the demand of the investors that they see everybody else doing the same, so they do the same? And this is a really complicated moment in design and in human history, because designers and architects and creatives and graphic designers and photographers are disappearing, right? And they're losing their place. Because why? Because anybody can follow the trend. And the trend is a given. So you don't need me if you're going to follow the trend. But you do need me if you want to think and do something original. And I think the survival of brands, companies, investors will be about that. That we will go back, this is the future, we will go back to looking to find how we can be original, have our own philosophy, our own vision, our own language, our own vernacular, our own statement. And I'm telling you, the last 100 hotels I've stayed at, I'm talking about new hotels, because every time I try to stay in a new hotel, I walk in and I cannot believe the same trends. It be it a barnwood floor or a Bauhaus lamp with a ball or a string light hanging over the bed. It's so ridiculous, because what interior designers are doing is they're just going to lose their jobs doing this. And many with AI are going to just dissipate and leave professions. That's a reality. So I say AI here, we have two choices in AI. I need to talk about this very quickly, because this is really our immediate future. The world is changing drastically. It's going to disrupt everything. The education will be wiped out. So moving forward, you say, how am I not only going to survive, but how can I prevail in the age of AI? Well, first of all, the future of AI is really EQ, not IQ. It's not anymore about how intelligent, so-called, you are. It's about emotional intelligence, because that's about humanity, right? That will prevail. This will be vacuous, gone. We don't need to really think that much anymore. We need to do. But if we think, we have to be completely original. And that notion of originality will prevail and survive. The other side of AI will be physical. So if you're an athlete, you're a dancer, you're a theater performer, you're, a magician, whatever you are. If you use your physical body, you at least in the next 50 years, you have a place in society. Isn't it interesting? It's opposite of what the world was. When the world was trying to survive, and 97% of the world was in poverty 400 years ago, right? You didn't even have a toilet. Think about this. The progress that we've done is incredible. We did all that progress with this. Anybody has imagination, a dream, anything, you can make it happen. You can manifest it. All the science fiction writers of the 1950s and 60s were just dreamers. They were making things up. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had a little object in my hand and I could talk to somebody? This is 1951, Philip K. Dick. He wasn't predicting the future. He was just fantasizing out of curiosity and imagination, right? Here we are. Almost everything. Wim Wenders did a movie in 1991 called Until the End of the World. And everybody in the movie is walking around with a thing that looks exactly like the iPad, and they don't talk to anybody, and they just stare at this thing. In 91, put it in context, right? It's a great movie. It's 4 hours long, so it's boring as hell, but it's worth seeing, okay? So, whatever you imagine, you can manifest, right? That's fantastic. So, here's the thing. We were using this, so all of a sudden nobody wanted to do physical work, right? See how young people, for example, Murano is dying because nobody wants to blow glass, right? You see the whole world full of this. Everybody complains to me around the world in manufacturing things that many people do not want to do these jobs anymore. Okay? Robotics will replace a lot of repetitive motion. It already has, right? You know, Rolls-Royce is made with robotics today, not by hand, right? In 1975, it was made by 30 men, 4 months to make one car. This is the change. So we spent so much time to get to where, white collar, what we call white collar, information age, right? And everybody wants a desk job. Now the desk jobs are going to be wiped out. Anybody uses a keypad, their job is gone in the next 5 years. So we go back to physical. So all of a sudden, if you're a chef, think about these things. These are the people who are now going to shape human experience. The people who are physical. And the ones left over here that want to keep this have to contribute an original thought, original ideas, original expression to continue to shape the world that AI may not be able to shape. Because AI shapes a world that it knows. We need to do something that no one knows. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just have to make a picture. And I invite all the IT people up in the stage and ACIA also. No, we just have okay. All IP, please. All ACIA, of course. ACIA also. And because we would like to thank you, Karim, for coming to us. And where's Thomas? It's with everybody. Yeah.
Thomas, come to the front.
Thomas. So we want to give you an award to become the honor member of IP. It's a great, we are very happy to have you in our family. And of course, our family is also ECIA. So we are greatly honored for this. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your words. And what else? We'll see you soon.
Let me see you. First of all, I'm very honored. Thank you. Very nice. And let's just keep up the positive energy and to inspire each other.
So we have a party now. So in the backside. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.